thank you all for being here today. Welcome. My name is Vicki Miller. I'm the group leader of Indivisible Philadelphia, and we are proud, oh, you're so kind. And we are proud to host this event today, and we are so thrilled to see all of you here. This is so important. You know, we're here today to support our libraries, right? And to say no to book bans, because our public libraries are under siege. These people, these MAGA moms, are not only going after school libraries and classrooms, they have said they're going after public libraries, like here in Philadelphia. And so we have to be adamant that this is not going to happen here. And that's why we're here. That's our message for today. So we all know we have to call this out and fight against this for future generations and for our democracy. So today you'll hear from some fantastic speakers. Some are living the experience of MAGA extremists that have taken over their school boards. You'll hear what this means to students and teachers and parents. We are grateful they are here and grateful for their work against these extremists. But first, I have a statement from Congressman Brendan Boyle. It's really a heartfelt statement, and I think you'll like it. He told us he is so sorry that he could not be here in person, but he is not around at all. So he sent this statement to us. As a child, my local free library in Olney was my ticket to discovering the world. To think that there are those who are so short-sighted that they put their own political beliefs before a child's potential to grow and learn is nothing short of despicable. Banning books is the manifestation of hate and intolerance in the worst way, in that it limits a child's potential. A child should be given the necessary guidance and access to diverse ideas and viewpoints to become a functioning member of a normal society. By restricting any child's freedom to choose and learn, these groups are doing nothing more than hindering the intellectual development of children under the phony guise of patriotism. Their actions are reprehensible and must be countered. I commend you on gathering here today and know that I am behind you 100%. And that's from Congressman Brendan Boyle. Our first speaker is a physician in Montgomery County who works with a coalition called Physicians for a Healthy PA, and she has lots to tell us.
All right. I'm Dr. Belinda Birnbaum, and I'm a rheumatologist and the co-founder of Physicians for a Healthy Pennsylvania. And like abortion bans, book bans are bad for the health of Pennsylvania and bad for the health of our democracy. Whether it's a right to choose about one's own body or what book to read, these restrictions are as unhealthy as they are dangerous. I'm going to bring us back to Roe a year ago and then bring us back to books. When it was overturned, it shook us to our core. This was an assault on women's autonomy and an attack on the doctors who care for them. We in Pennsylvania were very concerned. We were concerned that OBGYNs would leave the states where they could be criminalized for practicing evidence-based medicine and for performing life-saving abortions, and that trainees would not come to states where they could not learn, and that other doctors, not just OBGYNs, like rheumatologists or pediatricians, would not want to be patients themselves, and they too would leave. And so here in Pennsylvania, we worked to elect the candidates who would not let that happen. We felt we had a moral and civic obligation to our patients and our communities to speak out and do what we could do to keep everyone safe. So we came out and we voted and encouraged others to do so. And 1 year later, we have a Governor Shapiro, a Senator Fetterman, and a state house that flipped to blue. And so for now, Pennsylvania remains a place where one can access safe, evidence-based reproductive care. But we're beginning to see our predictions come true in restrictive states. In a recent survey, 68% of current OBGYNs reported that Dobbs' ruling has worsened their ability to to handle pregnancy-related emergencies. Their ability to practice the accepted standard of care has deteriorated. All over restrictive states, there are increasing numbers of maternity deserts where women cannot access the care they need, not just for pregnancy, but for cancer, infections, menopause, and overall health. Hospitals are closing maternity wards because doctors are leaving. 10.5% decrease in applications to become an OBGYN in states where there are restrictions. And the trainees who are there are being sent out of state to learn how to perform abortions so they can become licensed and accredited. And so we are alarmed when we note the striking parallels between doctors and teachers. Abortion bans are worsening the physician shortage. Book bans and laws targeting how educators can talk about racism and sexism are causing teachers to leave their profession. There is already a growing teacher shortage, just as there is a growing shortage of healthcare workers. Burnout caused by moral injury is a major driver of both. If you haven't heard of moral injury, it's the psychological impact where one is forced to act in a way that betrays one's own beliefs and values, especially in high-stakes situations. It's having to face the impossible predicaments and bear the consequences that for a doctor affects their patients and for a teacher affects their students. It's sending a woman home from the hospital to bleed and be in pain because she is ill, but is not hemorrhaged enough to require heroic measures. It's not being able to discuss sex, race, religion, color, or national origin in an open way. It's watching a woman carry a pregnancy for 40 weeks, knowing that the baby she will deliver will have defects such that they will only be able to breathe on their own for a short period of time before that baby dies, and that she carried that baby for an additional 20 weeks after knowing this would be the outcome. It's not being able to recommend a book to a middle schooler to help them feel less isolated and to serve as a refuge. It is having to worry about being terminated, fined, jailed for doing the job that is a calling that you were once so passionate about. Now, healthcare and education are the cornerstones of any society. The downstream consequences of abortion bans affect every aspect of healthcare, and book bans jeopardize how we teach our children to function in our society. When school boards and groups like Moms for Liberty try to silence teachers, administrators, and librarians by saying it is dangerous to learn about other or ban engagement in content that is unfamiliar or uncomfortable and do not support different or diverse, they are depriving children of learning the critical skill of perspective taking. As Atticus Finch said to his daughter Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird, you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb inside of his skin and walk around in it. As a doctor, I rely on perspective taking every day. I do not know what it is like to be a first-generation immigrant, or 80 years old, or blind, queer, bipolar, food insecure, morbidly obese, autistic, or an alcoholic. But I have read books where the protagonists are these things. And I learn when I read, just as all of us do. When I understand differences, acknowledge them, sit with the discomfort inherent in them, it allows for a richer and more empathic doctor-patient relationship. In 2010, I read The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Anyone? It fundamentally changed how I practice medicine. It tells a story of a poor African-American woman whose cancer cells were extracted without her awareness or consent and used for research at Johns Hopkins University Hospital. These cancer cells, later known as HeLa cells, would provide breakthroughs in medical research and disease, and she did not know. I had been a doctor for 10 years when I read it, but with its themes of consent and violation of trust, a book changed how I practice, never taking for granted the trust a patient places in me to care for them, and working harder to earn the trust of those who had been harmed by the systemic racism in our society. We all need to be able to take another person's perspective. Children should not have to wait until they graduate 12th grade to learn that. It is a striking juxtaposition between the K through 12 imagined by groups like Moms for Liberty and the institutions of higher learning in this country and companies all over the world that are supporting representation, that have deans and officers of diversity and equity. I can't see how we want to train our generation of children to not be able to see and empathize with other. What kind of future healthcare providers, teachers, leaders, and humans are we creating? In medicine, we know that it is not just the body and the disease that's responsible for outcome, but there are social determinants of health, other factors in our environment that determine how healthy we are: employment, housing, food security, access to transportation. But education and literacy are also social determinants. A society that is less literate is less healthy. So we must really work to keep our kids reading. But do you know what else is a social determinant? What? In 2022, the American Medical Association declared that voting is a social determinant of health. Those who vote, who try to take agency over their society and environment, have better health outcomes. So what can we do about it, other than stand here sweating on this hot day? In 2022, we spoke out, we canvassed, we knocked on doors, and we told people to vote for the candidates, not just who supported what we believed in, but who supported what was morally correct. And while we have another big election coming up in 2024, this fall, we need to grab our friends, our neighbors, and knock doors, make phone calls. We need to work to win school board elections all over this country. If not in our county, then the next one over, or the next state over. When we do, we are sending the message that we believe in our teachers. They are the magicians that work with our children. They should decide what gets taught. They are respected, trusted, and revered. We are sending messages to our children that we love them and that we accept them. Yes. All of them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, our next speaker is another doctor, Dr. Anusha Viswanathan. She is a physician and mother of a student in Central Bucks School District. She has experience testifying before the Central Bucks School Board about wearing masks, God forbid, during COVID. And she has experience of what it's like to live under these extremist positions and the effect on parents, teachers, and students. Doctor.
Thank you for inviting me to speak today. My name is Anusha Viswanathan. I am a mom in the Central Bucks School District. To explain the impact of Moms for Liberty, or M4Ls, and aligned groups on the parents, teachers, and especially the students in my school district, I am going to make an unusual analogy. It struck me when I was watching season 4 of the show Stranger Things. The scene unfolding in front of my eyes was a fearful, zealous, and a misinformed basketball captain leading an inquisition against the Dungeons and Dragons crew as he scapegoats them for all of the town's problems. And I said to my husband, "That's school board." Stay with me, those who are doubting my ability to connect my town to a sci-fi show. For those unfamiliar with the plot, Stranger Things is a supernatural horror societal commentary 80s nostalgia show that follows a group of misfit kids led by a superpowered teenager as they try to keep an unsettling alternate reality, the Upside Down, from becoming their actual and sometimes equally unsettling reality. In season 4, we see how religious fanaticism, mistrust of establishment structures, and the willful scapegoating of a marginalized group literally tears the fabric of a community apart. Starting to sound familiar? My own foray into the Stranger Things, the season 1 version, afoot in my school district, began in July 2021 when I spoke at a press conference about COVID. While I anticipated differing opinions on masks, I was unprepared for the chaos and racist vitriol hurled at me, including that I was an illegal alien and a murderer. That disruptive spectacle was courtesy of Reopen Bucks, which now has rebranded itself as the PAC Protect Bucks. I will always remember something chilling that the founder of that group, Josh Hogan, said back then, that this was all about reclaiming Bucks County for the righteous, clean, and normative people here. And clearly I, and many, many others, were not one of them. He's running for Pennridge School Board now. And yes, this was my introduction into Central Bucks. I think the intent was to make me feel like an alien in my own community. COVID unleashed a gateway to a new force shaping our communities through misinformation, because you are powerless in the face of a pandemic. Anyway, that should have probably been our first inkling about what was yet to come before Moms for Liberty shaped the edges of clean, righteous, and normative into something more palatable: parental rights. And let me add the essential caveat here every time, because I want you to remember that it's only some parents, some families, and some kids that are worthy of these rights. In fact, parental rights, or parents over politics, was the slogan that dominated the school board election cycle in 2021, which seated 2 Moms for Liberty members into our school board. And this was after one M4L member, Deborah Cannon, said publicly and coldly that she believes diversity, equity, and inclusion effectively dole out C's on the curve to whomever wants or needs one. She plagiarized those sentiments with no sense of irony from an M4L allied group called No Left Turn for Education. Deborah Cannon is now the CB representative to the Intermediate Unit, a program meant for the inclusion of a diverse group of children with special needs into their larger community, and for the provision of an equitable education for them. The very things that dole out C's in her own words. With a new school district, with a new school board, book bans came for earnest to our school district. There was a crystallizing moment in retrospect when a group of people featuring the same crew calling me an illegal in that press conference marched into a school board meeting reading curated excerpts from the works of predominantly Black, Brown, and LGBTQ authors. Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye was heavily featured as pornography in that meeting. One brave student said over the heckles of grown adults in that crowd, "How is it that you are going to ban books with certain words when I am called those very same words walking down the halls of school?" Recently, the Bucks M4L chair called LGBTQ folks a genre of people, instead of just people. Later on, we would learn that the excerpts matched those cherry-picked by M4L's national chapter, and it seemed that Central Bucks was ripe for the picking too. Almost instantaneously following that meeting, and despite the fact that individual families could always control what their individual child could check out of school libraries, Library Policy 109.2 materialized, a book ban policy that masqueraded as a book selection one. Because if the enterprise of book selection predominantly features how not to select them, well, that policy seems a bit upside down. But given that book bans were highly unpopular, the policy was touted as an anti-porn one. Again, a rebranding courtesy of M4L. Always remember the caveat: some moms for their comfort and liberty only. The righteous and clean ones as determined by this group. And here's the thing about book bans: you don't have to actually ban books to keep them from the hands of students. If you create an environment where fear of picking the wrong book outweighs their literary merit, you have essentially created a chilling effect for our teachers, for for our students and for education. A subtle, insidious ban enforced by collective silence. Then there was the removal of pride flags from classrooms and the codification of banning banning symbols of inclusion by Policy 321. The weaponization of queer and especially trans existence, this genre of people, as the M4Ls say, is a veritable battle cry for Moms for Liberty. A convenient scapegoat that allows their school boards to enact censorship measures, rebranded as neutrality, because of course no one likes censorship, while further marginalizing an already marginalized community in the most tender time and place of all, in their formative years at school. But the differential application of this censorship policy contradicts the whole neutrality claim. Let's start with the fact that the Independence Law Center, which has ties to the extremists and anti-LGBTQ hate group Family Research Council, ghost-wrote this policy for our M4L school board politicians, and they hid this major fact for months until about an hour before a news article dropped about their sham of transparency and neutrality. And because it's always been about what some community members want at the culling of others' needs. By the way, culling was a phrase used by our superintendent to describe what is ostensibly next in the M4L and adjacent playbook, how to cull the curriculum. This is already happening in our neighboring school district, Penridge, under a curriculum consultant called Vermillion, who is speaking at the M4L rally here. So here's the thing, when you invite Moms for Liberty into your school district, it opens the Trojan horse, the upside down, whatever you want to call it. It reinforces the connection to all of these ancillary groups and self-propagating consequences that flay your town open. Because the M4L premise is that existence beyond their ever-narrowing circle is inherently threatening and must be banned, neutralized, and culled. We are in every town USA, and in less than 2 years, we have been overtaken by these forces that have now interwoven themselves into our town. And those paying the highest price are the kids already bullied and marginalized and now scapegoated. There is a story here of caution and warning, yes, but also one of hope and resilience, because I still believe that my town story, our state story, our nation's story must spark action. I want to leave you with 3 things that speak to that. First, the courage of young people in our school district, from new graduates, high school students, and even middle school students, as they speak, write, and advocate has been beautiful to witness. This cannot be overstated. They are inspiring. Second, in Central Bucks, we have 5 candidates running against the M4L ideologies and the machine that funds them. They are Heather Reynolds, Karen Smith, Dana Foley, Rick Herring, and Susan Gibson. Because the only way out of the M4L web of money and fear-mongering is to involve yourself in your local school board elections in November and to vote. And third, something a kindergarten teacher told me as I worried about my own child's entry into the school district. She said, I just want you to know that your child will be loved here. Because that's what you want, right? Ultimately, and especially when your child is different, you want them to find a sense of belonging in their larger community. And that serves as my motivation to push back against these stranger things that have overtaken my district. Because unless you create the sense of belonging and acceptance all our children deserve, these stranger forces will one day come to reclaim something from you. Thank you.
All right, we have another fantastic speaker. This is Diana Lagerman. She also is a parent in Bucks County, and she will tell us about her experiences in her school district with the same kind of people. All right.
Thank you, of course. All right, I'm gonna try. All right. Nice work, Anusha. I'm gonna say the same thing, essentially. Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me here today. I am Diana Lagerman, and I am a recently resigned teacher that taught in Philly for 7 years, and I'm also a parent in Central Bucks School District. I'm gonna say a lot of similar things from what Anusha said, but bear with me anyway. While many of us were trying to move forward in the midst of a pandemic, power-hungry politicians with ulterior motives on a national level started to incite fall outrage around schools and public education, with the ultimate goal of privatizing education. And by defunding public schools, they manufactured fake issues and fake problems. Their target audience was conservative women, especially suburban moms. First, they built an army of anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, and science deniers, and fed them COVID misinformation. Armed with this newfound courage, these suburban women began harassing school board directors, calling them child abusers, and telling them that they're hurting children, even though all the school board directors were trying to navigate something that they've never done before, a pandemic. Then, those same power-hungry politicians started spinning CRT, or critical race theory. Key players in this new fall outrage admitted they wanted to make sure that whenever anyone saw anything they disagreed with, they would call it CRT. Most of the people rallying against CRT couldn't tell you what it is, but they saw it everywhere. They saw it in every classroom and in every assignment, just like their overlords planned. These Moms for Liberty started popping up all over the country at every school board meeting. They proudly wore their shirts and their hats and called themselves concerned moms, or quote, soccer moms, all the while they actively took marching orders from national power players and politicians. In 2021, the far-right takeover of our school board in Central Bucks included 2 Moms for Liberty. And since then, they have implemented policy after policy that censors teachers, bans books, and hurts our most vulnerable youth. They are actively working to destroy our district from within by making it harder to teach history, civics, literature, and writing. They are working overtime to make sure our children graduate with subpar critical thinking skills and lack of understanding of the world outside of their suburban bubble. Moms for Liberty on our school boards and in our community have been coming after our children, our teachers, and our schools for the last 2 years. And while Central Bucks had always had a Republican majority, it wasn't until Moms for Liberty overthrew us and overthrew our district that our district began to make national headlines week after week and for nothing good. Their policies are responsible for over 70 book challenges and 2 book bans, the forced removal of a quote by a Holocaust survivor, Elie Wiesel, the wasteful spending of over $1 million, censorship of teachers, and an atmosphere of fear and retribution in our schools and classrooms. They are the reason Central Bucks is hemorrhaging some of the best educators around. In addition to their harmful policies, Moms for Liberty on our board have done absolutely nothing to combat real issues affecting our students. They have ignored the mental health crisis affecting our youth. In fact, they have attempted to vilify social emotional learning and empathy as a concept. They have done nothing about increased absenteeism and the rise in behavioral issues in our schools. In fact, they stand firmly against restorative practices because, well, it's CRT according to them. They have done nothing to decrease gun violence, bullying, and harassment in our schools. In fact, their policies cause an increase in bullying in our schools, specifically and especially from our most vulnerable youth. Students come to every school board meeting to tell them, to express to the school board how their policies have hurt them, and the school board majority ignores them every single time. They belittle them by insinuating that adults have put them up to this. So much so that students now begin their public comment by saying that their words are their words and no one has forced them to come there to speak. They have done absolutely nothing to help our students. Their only mantra is for themselves, for their parental rights, not for the students, not for the children. Their ideology has blinded them to the real issues affecting our kids. Moms for Liberty, as many of you already know, is not a grassroots effort, no matter how they'd like to spin this. It was an effective top-down movement, also known as astroturfing, supported by conservative, power-hungry politicians and key groups that seek to destroy and defund public education so they can profit off its privatization. And now they have been designated as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center, something many of us have known for many years already. I've been asked recently, how has this divisiveness affected my community? And my answer is simple. It's not divisiveness. The premise is wrong. There's no divisiveness in our community. There's far-right extremism attempting to rewrite history and erase marginalized groups, and that's Moms for Liberty. There's an effort to weaponize parenthood, and that's Moms for Liberty. There are those who want Christian nationalism in our public schools, and that's Moms for Liberty. There's extreme far-right propaganda machine that has infiltrated hearts and minds of moms, and they are Moms for Liberty. There's a fall battle cry of parental rights that really just means rights for some and only some, and that's Moms for Liberty. There's no divisiveness. In Central Bucks, Democrats, Republicans, and independents are working together to push away the fascism breathing down our necks. We're trying, y'all. Moms for Liberty's rallying cry about protecting children, yet they have always had the option to protect their own children. They could have limited what their children read. They could have opted their children out of lessons and activities they found problematic. They could have homeschooled their own children or sent them to private schools on their own dime if that's what they wanted. But that's not what they want. This isn't about protecting their children or any children. This is about controlling the narrative, furthering oppression, and pushing their right-wing conservative ideology onto all of our children. It's about their power. It is not about protecting children. Right. I'm almost finished, I promise. I will leave you with this. Our community in Central Bucks has not stayed silent throughout all of this. We, for the last 2 years, have been fighting back. We have been screaming from the rooftops about what they have done to our world. And this year, our chance for change and progress is here. Our goal is to flip the school board from the far-right majority to something different. to a more diverse, right. Our goal is to bring compassion and common sense to our district. We have 5 incredible candidates running against an entire slate supported by Moms for Liberty. In fact, that slate appears on their voter guide for this year. Remember these names: Heather Reynolds, Karen Smith, Dana Foley, Rick Herring, and Susan Gibson. They are the 5 rock star candidates that will flip the Central Bucks School Board and save CBSD from the tight grip of Moms for Liberty and their funders. Moms for Liberty has no place in our schools. Let's show them the door this November and take back our schools. Thank you so much.
All right, we are going to have a short song about Moms for Liberty, so hopefully you can join in.
This song is called Moms for Liberty, by David Heitler Clevens. We're with Voices Rising Philly, a community activist choir. And please join in. This is the chorus. Do you pretend to be a mom for liberty? We know you're your claims are not true. All across this land, we will take a stand, for we can see through you. Banning books doesn't make us free. Targeting trans kids doesn't make us free. Harassing drag queens doesn't make us free. You're no mom for liberty. So of course, do you pretend to be a mom for liberty? We know your claims are not true. All across this land, we will take a stand, for we can see through you. Screaming at school boards doesn't make us free. Controlling teachers doesn't make us free. White supremacy doesn't make us free. You're no mom for liberty. You pretend to be a mom for liberty. We know your claims are not true. All across this land, we will take a stand, for we can see through you. You say that you're for freedom, yet you take our rights away. You try to control what we read and what we do and say. Don't say gay, don't make us free. Whitewashing lessons doesn't make us free. Splitting up families doesn't make us free. You're no mom for liberty. Do you pretend to be a mom for liberty? We know your claims are not true. All across this land, we will take a stand, for we can see through you. Yes, we can see through you.
Okay, so now what? We're all doing the first part of the job here today. We're educating ourselves, showing that we see what they're doing and we won't stand for it. And we're pushing back by our mere presence here today. But the next part is coming. We showed the MAGA world our power in 2020 when we shoved the former guy out of the room. And we showed the MAGAs again in 2022 when we beat back their anti-democratic and, by the way, wildly unpopular policies with overwhelming victories in Congress. And we'll do it again against these people. We will, because we are stronger than they are. Because we are fighting for the freedom for our students to learn, the freedom to read, the freedom to fully understand our history, the freedom to learn about the world and people who are different than we are. That's what libraries do, and that's what makes us a strong democracy. We know this truth, so now we need to get busy. If you aren't, I know you heard from people in Bucks County about the candidates up there, but if you're not from right here, find candidates in your area who are running this fall in races to defeat those MAGA extremist school board members. These are progressive candidates who are working so hard to win for all of us. Canvass for them, throw them a donation, phone bank, write postcards, lift them up on social media. Whatever you can do, do it. Because that's how we all pitch in to win against MAGA extremism. And if you're here in Philadelphia and you're not sure what to do, then you know about Bucks County already. We must take back those school boards from these bigoted MAGAs like you've heard about today. Find those candidates and help them out. Or find us, if you haven't already, indivisiblephiladelphia.com, and join us in the work. We make it fun. All right, so let's get going. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, everybody come back here and just stand for a wonderful photo. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hey, Moms for Liberty, bans off our books.
No justice! No justice! What do we want? CRT! What do we want it?
This is what democracy looks like.
What do we want?
Books!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we do? Stand up, fight back! What do we do? Stand up, fight back! 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 What do we want? When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Books! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Books! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Books! When do we want it? Now! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! If we don't get it! Shut it down! 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 If we don't get it! Shut it down!
because